afternoon, one and all. On behalf of Team Lee's Regtech, Team Lee's Group, I, your host, Rishi Agarwal, again welcome to yet another session of compliance conversations with some of the industry experts. Today's topic is very related and fascinating to us, especially in the world of technology. As you know, the world of technology is changing faster than ever. Recently, OpenAI's ChatGPT has taken the world by a storm. It is clear that technology will continue to penetrate our personal and professional lives deeper and deeper by the day. It will make our lives smarter by making the right pieces of data available to us at the right time to enable smarter decisions. Today, I have the pleasure of hosting two experts from the industry. Let me take a minute and introduce them. Let me first welcome Shailendra Kothavale. Shailendra is the Chief Compliance Officer and Chief Risk Officer at Aditya Birla Sun Life Insurance. He brings over 2 decades of experience in enterprise risk management, operational risk management, compliance, and other business continuity parameters. Prior to this, he was working with ICICI Prudential Life Insurance Company, Pfizer, and Avanta Group. Shailendra is a chartered accountant and a certified information systems auditor. He's also an ISO auditor, ISO certified lead auditor in information security and business continuity. He has co-authored technical guide on audit of life insurance companies issued by Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and has written for publications of professional organizations he has been associated with. He has won the prestigious Golden Peacock Award on risk management, multiple industry recognitions like CRO of the Year and Best Risk Management Team, among others. Welcome, Shailendra. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Rishi. Thank you so much. Pleasure's mine.
Let me now welcome Prashant Marathe. He is a General Counsel and Vice President at Sula Vineyards. Prashant is responsible for legal, licenses, and compliance functions. He brings over 16 years of experience in legal industry, wherein he has worked on diverse positions with eminent organizations such as Aditya Birla Retail, Mobile Store, which is a part of the SR Group, Reliance Industries, Shafire Foods, among others. He has been recognized with many accolades, which include the top General Counsel by Forbes Power List 2021, 4D under 4D Rising Stars 2020 by Legal Era, among others. Prashant has graduated with a degree in law from Symbiosis Law College, Pune, and Masters in IPR from Mumbai University. He further completed PG certification Gold in cyber forensics from International Forensic Services Sciences and advanced program in cyber laws from Asian School of Cyber Laws. Prashant, welcome.
Thank you, Rishi. Thank you all.
So it's a matter of great pleasure for me to have both of you here and share a vast array of industry knowledge that you've gathered in 2 different industries over a period of close to 4 decades of combined experience between the 2 of you. Now, if I look at the insurance sector, India is the 10th largest insurance sector in the world, 15th largest non-life insurance market. The current market size stands at 131 billion and is expected to almost double by 2025. So obviously, Shailendra comes from an industry which is rapidly growing in terms of customer base. It seems that the industry has been growing at a CAGR of almost 20% in the last 20 years or so. And this growth is going to continue for an extended period of time. So a lot of exciting times, Shailendra, in your industry, where growth management, which often comes with geographical footprint expansion, which basically means you have to open more branch offices, more service centers, more delivery centers, more sales offices, which basically means more complex compliances. So, I'm sure there are specifics that we'll hear from you. And Prashant comes from the alcohol beverage space. Some of us who enjoy alcoholic beverages, I'm sure, are very excited to see him here. Indian alcohol beverage space stands at about $52 billion. Domestic market, employs 1.5 million people in the formal sector. Alcohol beverages are among the top 3 sources of revenue earnings for most states. So you can imagine not just the consumers, but also the government is very interested in his sector. There are deeper regulations that are out there, and I'm sure he has a lot of fun, and he will discuss some of the fun points with us as we move through this conversation. So that's the panel that we have, both very, very diverse backgrounds. You heard about Shailendra coming from Pfizer and other such companies. You heard Prashant coming from, quick service restaurants, among others that he has worked with. And that's the diversity that I enjoy talking about. So let me first lay the context here. Let me show, a couple of slides here. And I do request my admin panel to bring up the slides. Why compliance management is so complex in India. Let's look at India's regulatory ecosystem, which has 1,536 unique acts. Subsumed in them are about 69,233 compliances and about 6,618 unique filings across the law of the land between union, state, and local laws. There are 7 broad categories led by labor, which is on the concurrent list of the Constitution, has 463 acts and rules. Among them are close to 32,500 plus compliances, and it constitutes almost 68% of the criminality that is there embedded in India's regulatory ecosystem. There is Environment, Health and Safety, which deals with Environment Protection Act of 1986 and all the allied rules, including solid waste management, hazardous waste management, e-waste management, plastic waste management. Many others are a part of that. A lot of registers and returns sit there. Finance and taxation, very clear: direct tax, indirect tax, customs, FEMA, advanced tax, income tax, GST, all of those fall there. Commercial deals with equipments, hoists, lifts, cranes, pressure vessels, boilers, tools, tackles, weights, measures, fire extinguishers. These are all examples of equipment that we use in our factories and equipment that keeps and enables our manufacturing. Secretarial deals with company law matters, SEBI matters, exchange compliances, typically event-based compliances fall there. Industry-specific deals with sectoral compliances, which means TRAI for telecom, FSSAI for food, RBI for banking and shadow banking, IRDAI for insurance. These are all sectoral regulators that sit there. So this is largely the regulatory landscape of India. If you want to see the details mapped out on the map of India, there is a next slide which will take us there. As you can see, this is the heat map of the country. This is based on a lot of deep research at Team Lee's Regtech over a period of time. Don't intend to go through the specific numbers, but as you can see, among the 1,536 acts which are there in the country, about 677 are central or union government, and about 859 are at the state level. Among the 69,233 compliances, about 25,000 plus are at the union level and about 43,000 are at the state level. And there's data available just in case someone wants to review. Let's move on and look at some more examples of compliance. A number of times I get asked, when you say compliance, what do you mean? These are some examples. Obviously not a comprehensive list. All kinds of licenses, registrations, permissions, consent orders, NOCs, returns, registers, challans, exemptions, remittances, payments, displays. These are all examples of compliances. These are various names, forms, and shapes. But the fact of the matter is these are examples of compliances that corporates go through. And when we talk statutory compliances, we will be dealing with all these compliances at multiple levels. Let's look at the next slide for some of that input. 3 levels: union, state, and local body levels, 7 categories that we just saw, and 3 types: time-based, event-based, and checklisted compliances. Time-based have a frequency, event-based, they get triggered when events happen, secretarial and non-secretarial, and checklisted are ongoing, where there is no specific date, but these are things that need to be done on an ongoing basis. Now, with this, let me bring my panelists into the conversation today. Let me start with Shailendra. Shailendra, I want to understand why we make such a big deal out of compliance management in India, why it is non-trivial to do compliance. What are the challenges around compliance management? Why does it need time and resources to manage? And what are the costs of non-compliances? So that's really what I want to understand from you based on your past experience.
Yeah, so I think in one question you've asked multiple things, and I think it's a whole journey. Uh, I think I still feel we should not make a big hue and cry about compliance. Compliance should be a way of life. So it should not be looked at as something different, which only a few select people has to do. And as they say, integrity is what you do when no one is watching. Compliance is also something which should be ingrained as part of your DNA. Unfortunately for us, the way we have developed as a country over a period of time, everything was clamped down. Everything was very difficult. We moved from a license Raj to our economy opening up to our legal system dependent on the earlier British system to the way our constitution shaped up, etc. And that's how over a period of time our laws and regulations have shaped up. And I think now we are dealing, India is the fastest growing country, one of the fastest growing in the world, but we are also dealing with a huge spate of regulations, which are complex, which are in their various stages of evolution. And I think a good institution is what complies to all of it, not just in letter, but as Prashant will say in spirit also. That's
I
something
think
which
the focus was on the word spirit, Prashant.
Prashant may also say that the Sula pe chada denge. So, but yeah, so and if you want to know the cost of compliance, try doing non-compliance in India. I think till the time you are not caught, you can do anything. The moment you are caught, anything can happen. And I'm not referring to the political situation happening in the country, but I'm saying as a normal citizen also. I'm also happy to see
That's
that.
a very good point
Yeah.
that you bring in, the cost of non-compliance, right? Often we hear people talk about cost of compliance, and what you are saying is the cost of non-compliance has significantly shot up over the years. Prashant, do you want to come in at this point, comment on the cost of non-compliance, how you are seeing non-compliance?
Yeah, sure. See, Shailendra has rightly used the word that if you think uh, compliance is expensive, then try non-compliance. That is a really beautiful say. So when we are talking about the compliance per se, so the many of the people are jumbled up, which you have beautifully clarified at the beginning slide, that the what is it exactly the compliance, right? First and foremost, the people need to have to understand the basic concepts of the compliance. Many of the people are jumbled, or the many of the legal people, or I can say the secretarial people are jumbled when we are using the word compliance. They feel that it is just the pertaining to the one of the terminology, that is a license, or maybe just the secretarial compliance, which is the company secretary take cares, or maybe just the labor compliances. But as you beautifully narrated that the compliances, now coming to the cost impact, or the it is a cost effective, or the to the larger organization or the conglomerate, which are never ever uh, give up all such cost related parts, right? However, if you see the smaller industry wherein they are not going to afford such things, but nowadays the era has been changed. As Shailendra has mentioned, that the era, compliance era, I can use the specific word, which is started from the I can say the pre-independence to till today, that has been evolved in a very different way. And nowadays the business conglomerate, now it's not only in India, it's the world is looking to the India, right? And in today's world of cutthroat business competitions, every business gives foremost importance to the compliance solution. So where I can say the cost effective, mostly the companies are looking towards the compliance industry, considering the government rules, regulation, norms, and as you mentioned, that the three layers, that the union and the state and the local. So company need to have to look into the layers as well as the type of compliances, and the simultaneously the way of the hiring the competent people to equip with all the technology apart from anything and everything. So to be frank, in a today's ever-changing landscape of HR laws, regulations, certain parameters such as not only the labor compliances or the statutory compliance management are the immense importance, but all other compliances are to the equally important. When we say the compliances, that is the filings to are also be the involved into it. So as a wine industry or the liquor industry, for us sorry, for us it is a to be treated a state, particular state to be treated as a country, right? So the each state have a different excise laws. I'm just giving you the example of the excise laws. There is no central or the union regulation or the laws to govern it. So naturally that the cost to comply in the each state is a too differ from government to government again. So the now recently probably everyone is heard about the example of the Kejriwal government liquor policy related issue, which is continuously in the news. So we need to also be in a false in such traps and to have pay the cost for the non-compliances, and hence we have to be ensure that these compliances has to be regulated in such a framework where that cost should not be incurred, right?
No, so clearly your industry needs a lot more focus purely because size continues to be in vogue. Laws are different from state to state. Lot deeper compliances, lot lower level monitoring is required. Bringing Shailendra back into the conversation, you brought in an interesting point around not just the cost of compliance, but cost of poor. Let me ask you this question. How, in your 2 decades worth of experience, Shailendra, how the demands of board from compliance officers, management team has changed, and how that is creating challenging compliance environment for corporates?
Yeah, it's a very good question and a very pertinent question. Today morning itself, I was in a conversation with the chair of our audit committee, and I think first and foremost, on top of their mind is, are you worthy of the license for which you're doing the business? Or have you fallen foul of any of the rules and regulations which should come and hit you? Obviously, that's not the case for us. So the discussion still then goes down to, are you ensuring compliance to everything, both in letter and spirit? And it's a certificate or it's an assurance which they seek. Because finally, for us, especially we are a regulated sector, and the confidence of the regulator is also a reflection of how the company is doing. And I'm not speaking about sales, but in terms of the viability of a long term, the way it's operating, the management is conducting the operations, the trust reposed by the customers. I think a regulatory confirmation or a comfort is a backing, or I think it's like an ISO certificate towards all of these happening, because somewhere it culminates in terms of how are you being looked at as a good corporate citizen. And I think it's one of the prime health parameters, like BMI could be for an individual. I think it's something. So boards are very serious about it, especially for regulated sectors like us. There are prescribed norms of what needs to get discussed at a audit committee, at a risk committee, at a board committee. How well do you need to keep them updated about how are you functioning, compliance to the various regulations. We also have some best practices like self-certifications by various function heads and people in terms of the respective laws and rules and processes which they are expected to adhere to. So that's something.
If I can pause you to understand how this situation has changed in the last decade, is it the same as how it used to be in say early part of 2011, 2012?
No. So, of course, the expectations are now very high. I won't say the board was not regarding laws earlier, but I think now the consciousness has increased a lot. The regulator is now in every area, right? Right from building cybersecurity rules, to the way you do proper conduct of your operations, to the way you handle customer grievances, to the way you book your sales, to the way you run an operating model, right up to approval of the CEO compensation, or approval of the KMPs also by the regulator. So I think to that extent, the expectation of the regulator has increased. The expectation of the boards have also increased over a period of time. And I think this is one good metric, which is a surrogate in terms of how it's doing. And I think the importance of it is, of course, increased over a period of time, especially for me as financial services industry, as it has matured over a period of time. This is one area which is very well looked into. At the same time, in the same breath, I also want to state that, for example, my regulator is Insurance Regulatory Development Authority. The regulator has realized that the R part of it, which is the regulatory part of it, they have done quite some good significant work by bringing in a series of regulations, but also they need to focus on the development part of it. And we are seeing that the regulator is pushing us to bring more penetration and more growth for the industry than what we have built in our business plans. So you spoke of the industry growing at a CAGR of 20%. In the last 3 years, the industry has grown at a CAGR of 25%. We as a company have grown at a much higher CAGR, and the regulator is expecting us to grow at much higher than that also. So I think the development part, which is the other side of the coin, because only if, and I like to take this classic case of a Formula One car. A Formula One driver will drive very fast, knowing at the back of the mind that there is a brake which they can apply when they need. So I think that's the role which regulations are playing, but not just the brake, but also enabling you to drive faster, and also serving as, say, a map of going in the right direction. And it's shaping up well over the last few years.
I couldn't agree more with you. If you look at larger macro parameters, India is the most populated country in the world. We recently took over China. We are the 5th largest economy in the world. Overtook the UK last year and became the 5th largest, eyeing the 3rd largest spot. But if you look at the insurance sector, we are the 10th largest. So we still have a long way to go in terms of breaking into the top 5 here. And I'm sure with the CAGRs that you're seeing, supernormal growth, those numbers can also be achieved. And that will probably create more complexity in terms of compliance management, because as you spread your geographical footprint, there are many items that you comply with which are on the concurrent list, and state element comes into the picture, and that makes it more complex. Let me bring Prashant back into the conversations. Prashant, alcohol beverage is unusually regulated because excise still continues to stay there. Tell us a little more about the challenges that you come across in managing compliances.
Sure. Let me just add on the one more point, which in Shailendra's conversation, and then I will back to your question as well. So basically, if you see the some of the 2 decades or the 3 decades back, so wherein the industries look into the not even the legal people, right, as a in-house counsels, they always have the preference to the hire external law firms or the external lawyers for their consultation or the legal advice. However, the same scenario has been just changed in the last decade in the compliance sector or the regulatory sector, wherein the organizations are now need the in-house compliances and risk management people, correct? Apart from that, there are someone should be on board who can regulate their compliances, whether in terms of that technology or whosoever. Now coming to the another aspect, wherein which you have asked the Alcobev related industry. So frankly speaking, as I mentioned, that the Alcobev is a highly regulated industry. But frankly speaking, like the Shailendra's industry, we don't have the regulator per se as a one regulator who can regulate our all these compliances activities. So every state and every geographical location, we need to have to face the different authorities, different rules, different regulations. Like let me give you the some of the examples, right? Like in Maharashtra, our alcohol, actually the alcohol industry is a very complex industry in terms of the rules and regulations, which is not easy to take over and fit into the regulatory framework, I can say. Let me give you the one of the example that the in Maharashtra we have the distribution system of the wine to the regular distributors, right? Like other products which we are distributing. However, if we go to the next to adjacent state, that is a Karnataka, wherein there is a KSBCL, Karnataka State Beverages, who are having their own rules and regulations, wherein we need to have to adhere and follow their own license system. Correct. The apart from all these aspects, so again, if I go further, then the Tamil Nadu, that is a TASMAC is there. So every state have their own regulation framework. This is only related to the uh, excise. Coming to the same way FSSI also. Since I was working with the QSR industry, wherein we need to have to expand the business to the east to west and north to south, wherein we came across with the different states, regulatory bodies, norms, as well as the rules. Now, where we have to face the major challenges in the Alcobev industry, like still this industry feels the people that this industry is highly managed industry, I can say, and more precisely, which is again the myth which I want to clarify it. And I can rather say that this is a highly regulated industry which is governed by the state to state, and therefore there are lots of compliances we need to have to adhere. And that's how we portray to the government also. There are lots of challenges, but you have already mentioned that this is a highly revenue generated industry, and therefore no state want to give their rights to the central ministry, and hence probably till the time we get the central regulations for the compliances, we have to be adhere with the state regulations. So uh, basically our board has also be aware that the which rules and laws need to have to follow, and for that I cannot go more into the details, specific examples. The reason behind it, that last month only we have listed, and still we have certain restrictions, so I just limit my statements.
Excellent. So, well, it's very clear that there are challenges which are both industry specific challenges, which are sectoral in nature, and then the challenges around compliance that come with scale. If you have to deal with multiple states, there are labor laws which are state specific formats and so on and so forth. In our experience, there are over 3,000 different forms and formats in labor. Each state has anywhere between 60 to 100 forms and formats just on the labor laws. And hopefully codification happens and we can rationalize and simplify some of these. But today, as you move your geographical footprint, open more branches, have presence in different states, compliance continues to be a major challenge. If you're dealing with several thousand of these compliances in a year, and to Shailendra's earlier point, certify it to the board with transparency, accountability, timeliness, traceability, and control, then चलता है, होता है, देख लेंगे, manage कर लेंगे, culture doesn't. So let me now switch gears a little bit, see if we are ready to bring our audience in a poll. I do request Abhay or Rishi to see if we can bring up a poll. In the meantime, I do see we have a sizable attendance today. There's a Q&A section at the bottom. Anybody who has questions, please feel free to put in the questions. And along the way, we'll request our panelists to keep responding to them. On the screen, you're probably seeing a poll. There are a few questions, only 7 questions. It will take us less than 2 minutes to answer these questions. This is our way of bringing the audience and seek their opinion on how they look at compliance management and so on. So I do request all of you who are available on in the audience today to take this quick survey and help us get your view into the mix. And some of you who have questions, please use the Q&A section and text us your questions and we will take them live. Spend about a minute in the polls. I'll keep it open for another 30 seconds. I do request all of you to take the survey. Really helps us get your view on how you perceive the challenge of compliance, how you are managing it, and all of these surveys do help us, craft a narrative and help work with the government in baking some of these thoughts into the policy making. So last 20 seconds. Last 10 seconds. I still see some of you responding, so I'll probably extend it by another 10, 15 seconds. Please go ahead and submit your answers. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's close the polls. We'll share the results towards the end. So now let's switch gears here, Prashant and Shailendra. We spoke about the challenges. What are the problems in the industry? Why is it so important to stay on the right side of the law? How people, process, technology systems should come together to enable you to create a culture of compliance. Both of you, between you, have spent 4 decades worth of experience in compliance management. I'm sure, having dealt with the complexity, a lot of useful tricks and tips are up your sleeve on how to do it well. So we have over 80 people on the panel as audience today. When they leave, I do want to leave them with some tips and tricks. In the digital age, when technology is omnipresent, when most of our professional and personal life is deeply penetrated by technology, how do we use IT systems? How do we create a culture of compliance? That's our topic of dialogue in this second part of our discussion today. Let me bring Prashant into the discussion. Prashant, why don't you share some tricks, tips, how you work in your organization to create the right culture of compliance, help your organization stay on the right side of the law, bring more shoulders to the load, and make sure that compliance is not accidental.
Sure. And this is a really required question, and thanks for asking this, because the many of the time it happens that we are just discussing something or the bombarding the knowledge, but wherein we are not come to the conclusion with this proper solution, right? So basically, let me just bifurcate this answer into the 2 parts. One is a technological aspects, which I will come later stage, and the first one is the some sort of the mitigations or the some sort of the solutions we need to have to follow to mitigate the compliance activities, right? So I can say that the many of the organizations, the board or the management need to have to play a vital role. They need to have to quarterly oversight the compliances and the risk related aspects, and the compliance officer uh, in the organization has to appraise to the board on a timely manner that what are the risk involved, to make them aware about the integrity, right, or the grievances or the cost effectiveness of that particular compliance. Coming to the second, I can say that the policies. So I have seen the many of the organizations till today, they don't have the specific policies in terms of the compliances. So the unless and until you have the specific policies for the compliance related aspect, you are not going to blame, or I can say the expect anything from the organization. Let me give you the cross departmental examples, wherein we can consider the same response from the other departments and they simply neglect it and not to the appraise or the highlight or the escalate to the compliance officer. Coming to the third one, I can say the compliance program and trainings, that is a must required for the organizations. Now, why I have this mentioned, considering your question for the specific that the digital tech compliances aspect, the reason behind it, unless and until we have to adhere this one and to cultivate the compliance culture as well, till that time we will not reach for the digital acceptance, right? Wherein we always need to have to follow that the tech softwares, that is I can say the tech softwares, like one of the team leads, and the great part is that the Sula is using the team list softwares as well. That is a one technology must have to adopt. That is a that era has already been gone, that the paper book need to have to maintain and the MISs need to have to maintain and to follow up with the all the locations and the persons. So that is a one part I can say. Now coming to the chat GPT. So though the chat GPT is the new advancement for the compliances related, you will get your answers. But ultimately the question is there that who is going to comply. So chat GPT is not going to comply. Ultimately, we need to have to ensure that that compliance is going to happen or not. Basically,
in the age of technology, human still continues to play that important role of knowing the law and knowing what to do and when to do. Softwares can help you manage the life cycle.
Absolutely, absolutely. See, softwares or all other technologies are, see, AI or chat GPT is going to help me out to the more vigilant, to give me the real database. Like, let's assume that the some notification has been come up in the Tamil Nadu. So that AI technology or the chat GPT give me the quick answer. But ultimately to adherence with that notification, that rules or the laws, need to have to ensure that the compliance officer, right?
So
So
that
yes,
kind of brings a very interesting point here, Prashant. And I want to quote some data here for the convenience of our audience. There are 2,233 unique websites in the country that publish regulatory updates today. There are 437 at union government level, 1,240 at the state government level, and about 537 at various local body levels. Most of these websites are not very well designed, with the exception of a few union government websites. Half of them, when you go and hit the link, may not even show up. Compliance notification comes on these websites, but it's not easy to browse. They are hidden 3 or 4 levels here and there. Each one of them is designed in a non-standard manner. The notification is there. You click on the document, half the time the document fails to load. A number of times you will find the document in a local language. in spite of the fact that today in the country you have multinational organizations also and domestic organizations which may be headquartered in a different part of the country. A lot of these create significant number of challenges of knowing what has changed. The information asymmetry in the digital age still continues to be there unless you embrace products that actually consolidate all these updates in one place and bring it. Now, Shailendra, your regulator is IRDAI, a union central government regulator. Most of the notifications probably come from there. What has been your experience dealing with regulatory changes that affect your business?
So I think it's a mixed bag. Sometimes you are in a position, especially with our regulator, it has been a very good experience where I think we have assumed the persona or role of a thought leader, where at an Aditya Birla Sun Life Insurance, we just don't want to do things which suit the organization, but something which will help for the policyholder, the customer, and we know will benefit on it in the long term. So the stated objective is always to engage with the regulator on issues which can help improve for policyholders, for insurers in terms of ease of doing business and having a level playing field across all insurers. Once you get that in, and if you speak with the regulator in the same tone, I think the regulator is also good enough of including you in the committee which makes new regulations or which changes regulations. Even if you're not part of the committee, someone else is part of the committee from the industry, the regulator releases the draft regulations. You get adequate time to give your views, to put forward your views, either through the industry association or through bodies like CII, FICCI, of which we are a part of. And we are in a position to ensure that the laws are something which we have some handle on before they come and get introduced. But of course, there are disruptors. There are regulations which come and which might impact our operating model. That has happened too often in the life insurance industry. So I think fairly we have built the resilience of developing it. And life insurance is all about the business of risk management. So if we ourselves are not have the relevant resilience and the risk appetite, then what's the use of it? So I think it's fairly well built in the culture. Even our compliance, we implement it in a risk-based manner. So for example, it is not about something which comes and hits us, but it is something about, can you prepare for the black swan events? Can you prepare for the grey rhino events which are staring at you in the face? And can you do that relevant discussion in the company? Do you have that culture? Do you have that maturity in the company to do it? So we do that quite often. Of course, there are something like labor laws, etc., which you don't have a handle on as an industry. But I think then you are in the same boat as others. You try to deal with it. I think in the present regime, which is there in the country, and I think the maturity with which the country has grown over a period of time, I think there is a fair amount of discussions which happen. It is up to us whether you know at what speed is it coming. With this regime, with the majority government in power, I think we know once a draft regulation comes in, it's going to come. It's a matter of if and not when. Just to give you an example, the data protection law, it's just a matter of time when it will come. Of course, it has changed its shape and form from the earlier regulation which came in. But we were prepared right from the time the GDPR came in Europe. So when I did a gap assessment, I was fairly comfortable in terms of dealing with any new regulation which comes in. So then we are looking at, can we turn it into something where I get a heads up or an advantage over competition. So if we are not disrupted, then we can become the disruptors also. So regulation can be used to take better advantage of opportunities and ride the wave also.
Absolutely. And recently, we've seen a whole slew of new regulatory changes to regulate fintechs, and the way the regulatory arbitrage was prevalent because of them being out of the ambit of the law and so on and so forth. Because as new technologies are changing the business models, the new regulatory challenges are coming up. And oftentimes the entrepreneurs are ahead of the curve as compared to the regulators. So it's important that regulators catch up, create the right guardrails in which entrepreneurs operate without hurting the interest of the consumers.
Yeah.
We are seeing a couple of questions come in. One of the questions is, what are the challenges compliance heads face in an organization to implement a compliance software? And the person has requested Shailendra to respond to that. What are the challenges to implement a compliance software?
So I'll tell you, compliance folks are not typically technology savvy. Okay, we more like our hardbound books. We have been brought up in that manner. We like the smell of the books, and hence implementing any workflow system. Also, compliance by nature is quite introverted in terms of being a chamber of excellence in its own ivory tower. So I think the biggest challenge is inward rather than outward. You need to make an effort to step out, go on the shop floor, go on the field, engage with people, get them aligned to what you're going to do from an automation perspective. Why will IT give you a preference over a business critical strategy project? And I mean, you can't just every time try the top-down approach or the mandate approach. So I think you'll have to get them along, get them the buy-in. So I think it's more by conversation. The second is you need to know technology to some extent so that functionally you know the pitfalls. You have a proper project plan to implement things. There is adequate amount of user acceptance testing which happens. Don't just rely on IT to do the user acceptance testing. You're the functional user. So get a proper VAPT done before it's launched, and so on and so forth. So I think the softwares are quite a few available in the market, including your software also, which is there. I think it's more a matter of what suits you, how well you customize it, and how well you implement it. And see, finally, whatever you implement, even if it's the best of the software, if no one is going to use it to log incidents, to do it's as good or bad as you use it. So better to have a 60-70% Sundar Sasta Tikau software than having 100% global software which no one is going to use. I mean, that's my 2 cents of it.
Couldn't agree more. And one of the biggest challenges there is India's compliance environment is far more nuanced and far more complex than some of the global softwares bring to the table. So A, it drills a hole in your pocket. B, adoption becomes a problem. C, the nuances of the specific regulatory environment are not fully encapsulated within the ambit of the software. So some of those become.
Yeah, Rishi, but I liked it the way you converted my comment from that the global softwares, Indians are better than the global softwares. So
we are manufacturing.
Yeah, but no. I think it's all. I mean, both are good, but I think if you have a good local partner who understands things, the local environment, it is the cherry on top.
Yep.
Now, exactly. In fact, sorry to interrupt. In fact, I was about to say that it's a industry to industry, it makes difference. Second, nowadays we can see the many industries from the outside are entering into India. So some of the e-commerce businesses are there, right? So there are the different norms are applicable, or the compliances list are applicable to the industry, as we are Alcobev, they are the insurance segment, some of the e-commerce. So wherein we can say that the everyone's need is a different, and basis on the need we can supply the requirement.
Absolutely. So Prashant, let me come to you with a very specific question. Softwares typically don't operate by themselves. There are humans sitting behind them who leverage them in order to stay compliant. That brings me to the question, how do you create a culture of compliance in the company? From a chalta hai, hota hai, dekh lenge, manage kar lenge, to this is non-negotiable, this is not optional and needs to be done. How do you go from A to B?
See, actually, this question is quite a broad answer, I can say, wherein if we see our typical stereotype culture from since era, that the whether you can say it's license Raj or Inspector Raj or the Quota Raj or whatever we can call it as. So that culture has been changed, and we are now a digital era wherein we have to adhere the certain compliances online, where the government has already taken an initiative to put up many things online, whether you can say the FSSI or the factory rules and regulations, and maybe you are the more expert into it, so you are very well aware that there are the multiple rules and regulations has been framed into the, whether it is a challan or anything on a online database, right? And that's the reason the we need to have the proper software to frame our compliances, or the whether it is or the challans or uh, all that licenses and everything. Coming to that, culture need to have to develop in the organization, where the training must be required for the organizational peoples, whether it is a board, whether it is a senior management, whether it is the team who are involved, means whether business teams or whosoever, that the culture need to have to develop to conduct the training sessions, right, wherein we can develop that culture. So it now that culture has already been moved from one phase to another phase, where the penalties are on a higher side, where the directors are liable, right, your key managerial persons are liable, so that ipso facto travels from one place to the another place. Earlier it was chalta hai ho jayega, but now it is a pakda jayega, penalty बैठ जाएगा. This is how the it has been transformed from one phase to the another phase, and that's the reason the technology plays a vital role, just because that the to make sure that we should not miss that deadlines, we should have that hand in hand things, different geographical locations and the states and everything. So this is what I can add on to it.
So, Shailendra, bringing you back into the conversation, a company of your size, I'm sure, is certainly dealing with a few thousand compliances, give or take. Board is asking for certifications on some periodicity, on being compliant with the law of the land. In absence of a transparent, accountable kind of an environment, what are the ways to produce a certificate which actually has meaning and data behind it?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So I think it's not a question of trust, but it's a question of professionalism, professional skepticism. So if anyone gives me a certificate, we take it with a pinch of salt. We don't want someone just signing a certificate saying XYZ. It's like the terms and conditions or your software agreement,
To
which you just,
whomsoever it may
yeah,
concern.
yeah, and you just scroll it down and you sign it. So we do some level of testing. So what we have done in an organization is, because I'm also the risk officer, compliance and risk are in the same house. We do a lot of testing in terms of implementation of regulations. To see whether, so this will include data level testing. We make queries of what can go wrong scenarios. And so for example, if someone has to be licensed before sourcing a policy, we'll take a dump of all policies and see whether they have been sourced only by the licensed people or not, the licensing date and stuff like that. And then we come up with areas where we find gaps. The gaps get looked into. They get shared with the various functions who are supposed to look at it. They're supposed to do again a self RCSA also, risk control self-assessment of their areas, of where all they have been going wrong or where all they can go wrong. This is in a way a voluntary disclosure opportunity for them. And it's a program which we keep on running on a regular basis. Of course, I know there are many organizations which may not have the infrastructure, which may not have the regulations to do it. We also do it because the regulator comes and inspects us. So the expectation is to have a internal risk-based supervision framework. So I'm like the internal regulator for the organization. However, not everyone can afford it, but technology is very easy. Data is available everywhere. So at least you can put in certain queries to look at it at your big, what can go wrong, large scenarios where there is a large penalty associated or a large reputational risk associated. There also you can prioritize between what do you want to look into. You may not be able to see everything, tick off everything off the box, but at least if you get a reasonable level of comfort across geographies, functions, products, services, various systems, I think you reached someplace.
Excellent. So there is one more question which has come in, which says, at what stage should an organization think of adopting digital technology for compliance? Is it a function of size or something else?
I think day one.
Yeah,
So day one,
exactly.
it is so difficult to implement something in an organization which is of various moving shapes and parts and going in different directions that you pierce the ears of a child when it's a baby. Okay. I mean, we do it in Maharashtrians and we pierce it when it's a baby and the baby doesn't realize because the skin is very soft. Same if you try to do it when the child is big, they'll throw all tantrums and ensure you don't do it. So I think it's best to do it when the organization is in its formative stage, or you imagine it in a formative stage. So do a zero-based approach, but do it. I think any time is a good time.
I'm going to remember that analogy that you just made, and I'm going to use it with the due credit to you.
Thank you.
So we are approaching 4 o'clock, top of the hour. I do want to open it up for any concluding remarks. What should our audience take from our discussion today? Is there anything I can leave them with?
Yeah. So, see, there are the few takeaways. I can say one is technology is evolving. So the all have to adopt the technology, whether it is AI-based technology, chat GPT or whatever, because the compliance nature is also going to be changed day by day. The government rules and regulation are stringent, and government is more focused into the regulatory and the complied way, and hence we have to ensure that the organization has to be compliant. Second, that to cultivate the compliance culture in the organization, which is be helpful not only for the organization but for the board members as well as the compliance officer too. And the third, I can say the to implement or adopt the best practices. So these three takeaways I can say helpful for the any of the organization to be complied in terms of all the way.
Excellent. Shailendra, anything from your side?
No, I think well summed up by Prashant. I think culture is most important. The other bit is compliance needs to be owned not by the compliance team, compliance officer, but you have to ensure that it's owned by all. So whether it's in the reflection in the goal sheets or KPIs of people, or whether it's a tone at the top, or whether it's the create good buzz in the middle, noise at the bottom, do whatever you want, but some good amount of awareness around it, including case studies, etc. I think a good technology platform, a good testing of the implementation of the program, a good prioritization of things within the organization in terms of what do you want to drive, what's the end objective you want to look at, and keeping your eyes and ears open in terms of possible opportunities and disruptors. The compliance will be very well accepted in an organization only if it enables growth, it enables you to tap into opportunities, whether it be through sandbox route or whether it be through having an edge over competition, etc., etc. But be there as a business enabler and business partner. So have a bit of understanding of business as you expect the business to have a bit of understanding of compliance. And I think then we'll beautifully coexist.
One last question from my side to both of you. There are a lot of budding professionals who are entering the world of compliance. Any career advice to them? How should they approach their profession in the digital age?
Sorry, come again, Rishi. I missed.
So I was basically saying a lot of young professionals are entering the industry at this stage when substantial digitization has already happened or is in the process of happening. Any career advice for these young professionals who are entering the world of compliance?
Absolutely. See, as I mentioned a few minutes back or the in mid of my session, wherein that the era has been changed. Like I may given an example of the law firms as well. So I can give the career advice to the young compliance officers that this world is a new world, I can say. Still, it has not been reached at the destiny. It's long way to go. Though the technology is there, but ultimately India is a developing country, right? 2050, we have the set goal to be a developed country. And till that time, we have an ample opportunities, specifically in this field, right? As till we are going to be a developed and fully equipped with and all the central and union controlled rules, regulation and laws. So young generation can treat each state as a one country. So we have the almost the 35 plus countries wherein they can explore their career.
Excellent. Shailendra, anything from your side?
No, I think keep the passion on. If you are passionate about your careers, the others also will think of it. So don't think of it as a support function, but think of it as an enabling function. You have a long way to go. So don't burn yourself midnight by excessive interpretation and don't alienate yourself from the business by being unapproachable. Be approachable, be supportive. I'm not saying be non-compliant, but give them some range within which to operate. Understand technology. I think that's very important. Keep on learning new technologies and new areas. So be a budding professional for life. Always carry the L sign on your back, and I think you will do fantastically well. Best wishes.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time, some pearls of wisdom coming from both of you. I'm sure our professionals who are in the audience today have gained some serious insights from the veterans like yourself in the industry. I appreciate the opportunity of speaking to both of you and wish you all the very best in your respective organizations to keep them on the right side of the law. We are always here to help in any form and shape possible around compliance. So once again, thanks audience for being here. I appreciate your time and patience. It's the top of the hour. We'll meet you again next month with yet another compliance conversation on the subject of staying on the right side of the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Rishi. Thank you all.